we were having a conversation with the state oil and gas operation in Brazil, Petrobras, and they shared the dilemma that they were in their annual period of a seasonal peak of hydroelectric power generation, which left them with surplus natural gas. And as many of you have probably seen in pictures of oil and gas fields all over the world, when there is surplus gas, it is simply burned in enormous flares, in flames that you can see from space. It's a tremendous waste, it's a tremendous environmental footprint, it's simply a terrible thing. And we said, what about building an online web presence in which you could spot market auction this gas and then shut the system down and not have it cost you any money the rest of the year? They said that they had engaged in a conversation with a mainstream enterprise software provider with whom they already had an ongoing relationship, and that this provider had said yes, such a thing could be done, and it would only take about 8 months to do. Well, of course, 8 months is a really long time when you're talking about something that comes and goes in a matter of weeks. And so they had abandoned the idea. We said, well, what if we could do it in 2 weeks? They didn't exactly throw us out of their office, but they were skeptical. We said, what about a 2-hour conversation right now? And we'll define the data model, and we'll show you something in 1 week. And in 1 week, we came back with not only the working prototype of an online website for spot auctioning of surplus gas, but also, and this is crucial, an online content delivery system that would allow them to train the people who had to use this system without bringing them all to Sao Paulo for training, because of course there was no budget or any other resource for doing that. So here we are at the end of week 2. Everybody's been trained, the system goes online. At this point, total outlay, about $50,000 for professional services. In the first operational week, this would be week 3, revenue, $500,000 US. In the next week, $1 million. In the week after that, $5 million. In the week after that, $8 million. At this point, I stopped receiving the detailed reports. We knew we were going to be wrapping up the whole thing fairly shortly. But I did do the calculation of the internal rate of return for a project in which you outlay $50,000 in week 1 and then take in revenues along the timeline I've just described. And it works out that the IRR is 383% per week. If you annualize that, you come up with a number with 35 digits, and I didn't bother to memorize them all. It would be like trying to memorize the digits of pi. The point is, your ROI justification form probably doesn't have a space big enough to fill in the kind of numbers we're talking about here. That's what I mean when I say that if we talk about the cloud as a means of value creation and not just as a means of cost reduction, we have a conversation that has simply no upper boundary on the amount of value that we can create. Now, I want to give you some ways of assessing and evaluating anything that's brought to you and that purports to be a cloud computing proposition. If it has what I call the horseless carriage syndrome, where they've taken something recognizable and simply changed one piece of the delivery model. In the case of what might seem to be a cloud computing offering, let's take this and run it at the other end of a wire, and then it will be cloud computing. Well, maybe not. Think about storage as a service. If you think that storage is simply a matter of capacity and speed, and that you can centralize storage in a massive storage farm and put it in a facility and save a lot of money by doing that, well, you'd be right. But once you have done that, think about the implications of storage being located in the cloud, where now, for example, data maintenance can be done through a crowdsourced reputation economy, like, for example, Jigsaw, which in fact is now a Salesforce.com company, with the result that customers using a customer relationship management tool who touch a contact record can have the system say, this record actually looks out of date. This person's title has changed. Or even, this person is no longer at that company. But I've got 5 other contacts in the database who are at that company. You cannot conceive of any hard drive that anyone has ever sold you having built-in data grooming and quality maintenance as part of the function of that storage system. It's just not something it could do. But once the storage is in the cloud, there's really no reason why not. Think about a call center operation. Yes, there are some obvious economies to moving a customer service call center into a cloud environment. You would be able to let dispersed workers, part-time people working from home be on your desk, so to speak, because there no longer is a physical desk, and that's great. There are a lot of economies to be achieved by this. But what about thinking of the fact that now this is in the cloud, it can be aware of and can interact with things like Twitter and Facebook. This is not a hypothetical. Bank of America monitors and responds to mentions of its products and services on Twitter, handles 1,100 tweets a day. And this is interesting. Not only do all those 1,100 customers feel that they've received personal, real-time attention from the bank, but everyone who follows any of those customers also sees that personal attention being provided. It is a fantastic generator of brand name reputation.